Welcome to Springball Boulevard. We have Mike Ryan of the Dan LeBatard Show, Meadowlark Media. Mike, we'll take an opening statement and then field some questions for you here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, all fans of Spring Ball. I'm honored for this invite, and quite honestly, the rhetoric this week among spring football fans has been quite toxic. I think now is a time for unity because there is a wide enough lane here for all forms of spring football to thrive as long as we help each other and support each other. And really disappointing turn of events from the USFL this week to initiate a beef where there was none. I could foresee a future where the leagues come together and form a mega force of spring football. And instead, we're having these petty disagreements that really have nothing to do with the XFL. The XFL was just operating in its own silo, hoping to get to year two, which, as everyone knows, has been the biggest hurdle this league has ever faced. And now, because the USFL has cleared such a hurdle, they feel like they can talk. And it's very disappointing because I'm very much on the side of unity.
Beautifully said. We're going to hop right into questions here. Zach wanted to ask Mike Ryan, Mike, should I feel bad for declining my cousin's wedding invitation to see the beer snake in person?
Not at all. Not at all. And I actually have a similar conundrum. One of my friends is getting married the day of the XFL championship, and he's a passionate XFL fan. He set the state before he knew there would even be an XFL championship game. And I'm really disappointed. I told them to push back the wedding at least so we could all watch it at a bar together, and he at least accepted that bit of bargaining. Unfortunately, I won't get to be in San Antonio, but the beer snake is something to behold in person. I'm hoping to make it out there this year. I have a standing invite. I cannot wait to experience that Audi Field atmosphere. I say, yeah, it depends on how close to the friend is, but beer snake.
And speaking of that XFL championship game, I don't know what goes in. I get it. It's a professional football league, so you have to have your title game at a neutral site. But they could have done it somewhere else. I think they could have had it like XFL North and South. We do like the old coin toss alternative from 2001 where the division champions just run to the football and whoever lands on. Like you got to have it because San Antonio is great. Don't get me wrong, but you're going to have do XFL fans travel? I will.
Yeah,
you will.
We'll find out. I guess. Yeah, it's kind of curious. I do like the idea that tip of the hat to version one. But I don't know in today's climate if anybody can get away with that. But just like a one-off, I guess there's things that they have to mobilize and logistics that they have to have in place. San Antonio, it's a shame that the Brahmas have been disappointing, and maybe now with a quarterback change, they'll play a little bit better. But that market has a ton of potential. For the first week, it was a pretty electric atmosphere. I'm inclined to say St. Louis or DC deserve it just based off of how those atmospheres feel. I guess they probably want more capacity than Audi Field has to offer. It'll be interesting. I think that it depends on the teams that make it to the championship game, right? I think St. Louis fans will travel. DC fans have proven that they'll travel. There was a pretty solid contingent out in St. Louis. I think Seattle is promising, and I think that they probably have a higher ceiling than most people would assume, given their record right now. I think that they have a shot to make that game. So I guess it all depends on the teams. It's kind of weird that the Texas teams are really struggling considering the advantages that they have being base camp.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Derek wanted to ask here, Mike Ryan, would you rather watch a full day of NFL Red Zone or a full day of Dean Blandino reversing calls?
Oh my God. I can't stand the Blandino experience. Blandino came into this and everyone thought, yeah, Blandino's pretty solid at this. And then just horrible decisions on week one. And I haven't been able to forgive him. That Paxton Lynch Orlando probably was worse for that call in retrospect because they had to stick with Paxton Lynch longer because he was given a touchdown that should have been an interception. Red zone all day. than Blandino fumbling around and ruining his legacy.
Adam wants to know here, Mike, who is the PJ Walker of XFL 3.0, the guy that all of us XFL diehards are going to root on when they make the league next year or in the future?
Okay, so PJ Walker was a quarterback. So let me split this up. I think Jay Peasy is probably a next level weapon, and there's reports that the Broncos are interested. That guy can get separation on anybody. So he's an NFL player. I don't laugh at this one because I think there's been such a babyface turn with Ben DiNucci. I love it when he fumbles a football. Anytime he fumbles a football, my group chat has to chug. And so he's a legend. But I do think I see the potential in Ben DiNucci. I don't want to sound ridiculous because he was a bit of a punchline early on. But when it's cooking, he looks the part. And then he'll do something so goddamn stupid. It'll make you want to pull your hair out. But I see why the NFL liked him. I really do. So I think Ben DiNucci has a shot at the next level as well.
Yeah, and MVP is a quarterback award, and that's exactly what all the experts are saying. Ben DiNucci is the betting favorite for XFL MVP right now, regardless of him throwing 7 interceptions and 4 fumbles in 5 games. Ben DiNucci, the front runner.
That's a Ben DiNucci experience. I get excited when he drops the ball for no reason. Hey, he's got wheels.
Throws a pick up 9.
I love the Ben DiNucci experience. He's way more mobile than people would think. And Josh, I think people point to his weapons. Pearson's obviously a good one. He's got a good sound running game. Josh Gordon is a hilarious watch because he creates separation just with his shoulders and his width. He's not at all the same player. Watching him run that one into the end zone, that like 70-yard bomb to win the game, was kind of painstaking. But DiNucci, I think, Pearson and DiNucci are really interesting NFL prospects.
Yeah, for sure. Chris wanted to know, what is more likely, the Guardians winning a game or Seattle going for a 1-point conversion?
Guardians
always three in Seattle.
Yeah, I think Guardians winning the game, and it was frustrating because anybody that had watched the Orlando Guardians, and I don't blame anybody for tuning out on their games. They're the least watchable team. They finally found their quarterback, and unfortunately, it was a quarterback that they tried to kick off the team. But they moved the ball, and I don't know how much of that was Vegas, but they look like they're starting to come online, and they finally settled on a quarterback there. So I think they'll be able to steal one.
Yeah, Quentin Dormady. I mean, What about adversity? You sit for a couple of weeks, you get your name dragged through the mud, you're selling the playbook, allegedly, and then you're back, you go 22 for 25, 256 yards, you almost win. I think if he starts that game over Lynch, they probably do win.
Dude, don't you think it's a byproduct of just having these teams fly together? People talk and the accusations fly when it's just like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get into the game this week. That's really what was at the heart of it, and that's why he was cleared. And they shot themselves in the foot by not having him out there because he actually unlocks a lot of their weapons. Entering this season, I had high hopes, being a University of Miami guy, for Charleston Rambo. I thought that he probably hurt himself by entering the NFL. He actually ended up going undrafted. Staying in college would have been better for him. But he has a lot of talent, and he's just been in a terrible offense. And Dormady seems to have some kind of rhythm with him. So I'm hoping, just for my UM fan homerism, to see more of Charleston Rambo out there.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring Rambo up. We had a question from Ben. He said he'll give you 3 XFL players. You just named one. He wanted you to name their college. So you got Rambo. That was one of them. Trent Harris is the next one.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, Ben, it's too easy.
Yeah, Te'amo went to Ole Miss. Derek King went to Miami. I already ran it up on.
How about Joe Powell of the Arlington Renegades? Any clue there?
No. Where did Joe Powell go?
Globe Tech.
Is that an online school?
Your guess is as good as mine, Mike Ryan. Globe Tech repping in the XFL.
Globe Tech.
I have no idea. I love this league. Going on here. There's a good one from Steven. If you could catch a 4th and 15 conversion from any XFL quarterback, who would it be?
Any XFL quarterback in history through all 3 version?
Well, I don't know if the other two iterations had the 4th and 15, so let's just stick to this
All
one.
right. All right. Dear King,
Oh,
cocaines.
that'd be a good one because nobody expects him to throw that on
Yeah.
4th and 15, so that'd be
Yeah.
electric.
Yeah.
Joey says if the XFL could expand to one city, which I'm sure they will in the future, where will it be or where should it be?
Um, so I know that the crowds weren't very good in the New York and LA market, but I think that they're making their lives difficult by not having teams in those markets from a ratings perspective. There's a whole bunch of reasons, and I actually do think that they're promising stories. And you can tell in year one they're just trying a whole bunch of different things to see what works and what doesn't. Random Thursday games. This week we got a random Monday night game. FX, network TV, ESPN2. There's no rhyme or reason to their television schedule. And for a viewer, that might be a little frustrating. But I kind of sat back and I said, oh, this is just data collection. They're just trying to find out what works. And I think one of the big missteps that they made was probably focusing on certain markets that they thought that they could get better attendance in, as opposed to opening up TV markets. To not have a team in the LA or New York market is difficult. You saw, granted, the USFL had a lot of things working for them, network TV being first and foremost. And they had teams associated with markets that didn't even play in those markets, right? They all played in the hub city. But you're more inclined to check out the XFL if you're a New Yorker or from Los Angeles if there is a local tie. So I hope for season 2, provided we get there, which I'm hopeful we will, that they're going to put a team at least in LA, because that had a better attendance than the antiseptic atmosphere of MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, and I get the Vegas thing. You want the partnerships that opens. You want the sports betting, right? But obviously, it was a last minute decision to go with
Yeah,
Cashman Field.
yeah,
And they have, I mean, you've watched, they've made improvements over the week. The opening game was terrible. They've made some improvements over the weeks. People from there making good points. It's the desert. We're not going to have quality grass. Like, it's tough. Obviously, that was a last minute decision. As far as the XFL's future in Vegas, is that something sustainable? And is it Cashman Field? Is it somewhere else? Like, where do they go if they stay in
I,
Vegas?
I don't really know what the options were, and I was curious to know where they were going to play, and they held that location till the very last minute, as you said. It is the only atmosphere, and Orlando's doing this, but I can largely blame the play on the field for Orlando. It's the only thing that comes off small time. It reflects on the television product, and that's not at all what you want to connote when you're trying to have a largely made for television product. So I don't really know what the future holds for the Vipers franchise. I'm going to make a really bad pun, but that Vipers franchise seems a little snake bit.
Rolling right in here, Jackson says, will we ever see an XFL game go to overtime? That's an interesting question, right? Because these overtime rules are really cool. You have one team on one end, one offense defense on the other, so you don't have to walk across the field. So
Yeah.
it's kind of shootout style. I think it's 2-point conversions until one team gets to 3, I believe.
Yeah.
Do you like those overtime rules? And when will we finally see an overtime game? We haven't never seen one.
Yeah, I would love to see one. I think Monday night probably has a shot at it. But I it's the 1 through 3 point after touchdown options that the teams have that make it far more difficult to actually get to overtime. But it's an inevitability that we'll see these. Certainly, especially if the league expands. What do you make of having every game go on? I was curious that they didn't try to pull simultaneous games. Just if this is all about data collection, having simultaneous games, it might be too difficult to have a red zone thing produced out of nowhere. But I think that experience might be cool. Have multiple games on like FX and ESPN2, and on the network feed have an XFL red zone type of product, and seeing how that rates. I hope that the league probably considers that. If not for year 1, maybe year 2. They probably need more teams to do this.
Yeah, I think when you talk about the USFL, obviously being able to kind of do whatever they want because they don't have to worry about their attendance. I think the XFL, when they lease these venues to, like, clearly what happened in Seattle with them having to play 2 Thursday games, I think it's big on data collection, but I'm not so sure Lumen Field may have like had dates open. It could be the same at the Dome in St. Louis, where St. Louis didn't play there for the first 3 weeks simply because maybe the Dome was booked. Like,
Yeah.
this is a lease. Like, this isn't the home of the Battlehawks necessarily. Like, these venues are leased out. And I'm sure they have to work around like a bunch of different things that weren't expected. So I'm wondering if they have complete control to come in and say, hey, we're the top priority here in these venues. So, our TV schedule dictates when we're going to play. Kind of feels to me like the venues are dictating when they're going to play.
That's an excellent point. And you get the press releases, I'm sure. Like, it's incredibly fluid, the XFL television schedule. It's basically flex scheduling the rest of the way. And there might be several factors. It could be data collection like we outlined, but I think the lease agreements is probably closer to the truth.
Yeah, actually, that leads into a question from Phil. Phil said, Mike Ryan, your Hurricanes, a potential to ruin a big sports weekend in Houston for me next weekend. I read that and I was like, what is he talking about? Well, Phil says he plans on seeing the Houston Cougars win in the Final Four in Houston on Saturday night. Then he's going to go see the Roughnecks beat the Battlehawks on Sunday. And back on Monday to see the Houston Cougars win a national title. So none of that will happen for Phil if the Canes pull this off. But he's thinking ahead. I mean, that's another one where I looked at the XFL schedule. They actually double booked with the Final Four. And I'm like, this is crazy. The Final Four is in Houston. What are they doing? So they moved the game to Sunday. They must have just realized this. They moved the game to Sunday. And now you got fans like Phil who's like, I'm going to see the Roughnecks and the Cougars in the same weekend. Why not, right?
Well, I guess that's one of the pros to a very fluid scheduling approach. I hope my Canes ruin things for, what was it, Phil? Phil. I hope that they ruin things beginning tonight in Kansas City on the men's side, and De'Aaron King can at one point break your heart, your Roughnecks little heart. I'm a huge fan of Weapon X, and I see you're repping the Defenders over there. I think the Defenders by far have the best quarterback situation in the league. They put to bed the cliche that if you have two quarterbacks, you have none, because they use De'Aaron King so well. I was actually really high on Eric Dungy coming out of college, and I would love
special teams tackles out there. How about that,
dude? There was talk week one that there'd be packages that would see Te'amu, Dungy, and De'Aaron King all out there, and I'm really hoping to see more of that. If I'm a team like Orlando or any of the other teams out there that are having quarterback problems, I'd kick the tires on Eric Dungy. I think he's a real talent.
Well, here's the problem with that. That leads into our next question. Josh says XFL players get a $1,000 bonus for every game they win. I thought about that. Guys like a TJ Stormont, really getting into the weeds here. He was an offensive lineman for DC. Goes 5-0, so he gets the $5,000 in his paycheck. Then traded to Orlando. You got to feel for old TJ.
Yeah, I feel for TJ. I feel for anybody that's playing for Orlando right now. That is a pretty toxic atmosphere there. Just from the outside, I'm not inside, but the season's gone about as poorly as one can imagine,
and literally making less money now because
making less money. And I don't know, like, T-Buck has had a very curious approach to these sideline interviews, and it's not necessarily rallying the troops.
No, not at all. Josh also wanted to know, if you were commissioner, would you bring back the $1 million game from 2001? That was a disaster.
I'd probably adjust for.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, we had one more here, and it's as ridiculous as you can imagine, from Craig. He says, Mike, I just dropped Brett Hundley from my XFL fantasy team.
Good.
That had to be real promising if you're in your draft and you're thinking, I got Brett Hundley. I mean,
the most expensive quarterback in the league.
Yeah, getting paid $200K to now ride the pine.
He said what happens when you go up against the King of Spring.
Yeah. He said the only quarterbacks available on waivers, Paxton Lynch and Jack Cohn. Yeah, do you
Oh,
have a preference?
jeez. Pick up Huntley again. You gotta just hope. You gotta just hope something happens to Luis Perez because yeah, that's a dire situation over there. Woo! Or just hope that someone trades for Eric Dungy.
Kurt Bankert, I mean, I'm sure the whoever runs XFL fantasy has not quite loaded Kurt Bankert's profile
Yeah,
into there yet. So maybe just wait until Kurt
yeah.
Bankert becomes
Go
part of the
Bankert.
database. I
Yeah,
don't know if
find
you're in an
that
XFL
Bankert.
fantasy league, but I literally have to wait. I get an email and I have to wait to make any transactions until Tuesday. Like the league locks on Tuesday and like the website isn't capable of letting me do anything until the following Tuesday. It's hilarious, but hey, I'm just glad we have XFL fantasy. It's not something I would have expected to have. We're
Yeah,
like you said, we're collecting data.
I play a daily fantasy game
Yeah.
every where the low score has to endure one of several punishments, and I look forward to building out that roster. I got high hopes for Charleston Rambo this week. Now that the quarterback position's a little settled.
Absolutely. Well, that is Mike Ryan. Mike, we appreciate you championing the XFL. I mean, you do it every time. You're very reliable. The XFL expert. We love the content. The guys here on Springball Boulevard were fired up that you were going to be coming on today. Thank you for answering some of their questions. We hope to have you back sometime around that XFL championship game. I hope it's my DC Defenders in San Antonio. I already got my hotel and flight booked. If I have to go down and watch Danucci and the Dragons, I will not be happy. So here's to the DC Defenders making the title. Thank you, Mike, for joining us today. And go Hurricanes.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Go Canes.